You're listening to KDKR, Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, and KYJC Commerce.
Portions of KDKR's daily programming do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, Harvard can't teach you what you learn from the streets. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, today, what Harvard can't teach, well, you just learn from the streets. Real estate developer Sam Liebman is my special guest today to talk about his book, Harvard Can't Teach What You Learn from the Streets, The Street Success Guide to Building Wealth Through Multifamily Real Estate. Sam, welcome to Prudent Money.
Pleasure to be here.
You know, Sam, in the book, you say the classroom can only teach you so much. The benefit is from real practical experience, which you teach in the book. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think our schools have basically failed us. They're not up with the times. And if you want to learn real estate, you know, it's like driving a car. You can read all the books, you can take all the lectures, but the only way to really learn how to drive is to get behind the wheel. So I wrote this book because I think there's a lot of pollution in the marketplace of self-help books who really aren't focused on teaching and helping people, but rather on, you know, peddling their wares. So many people have come up to me during the years and have asked me, said, you know, I want to get into real estate. And I said, why don't you? 9 out of 10 times the answer has been, I wouldn't know where to start.
Sure.
And I'm trying to give people a place to start to master the fundamentals and learn what they don't teach you in school. Because street success, as what I call it, is learned from a separate curriculum. It's by doing it. You know, we want to teach you how the car works, not how to sell the car. And I've been doing this a long time. I've been a developer. I'm 66 now. I've made a lot of money. Time to give back. And I'm not looking to be, as I say, the richest guy in the cemetery anymore. I'm really looking to help people. I have young people. I love young people. And a lot of them, unfortunately, are lost because there are so many more, you know, jobs out there they don't know about. They don't know what to do. And they need direction. And I'm trying to be a mentor to these people.
So, Sam, you know, I talk to a lot of people that real estate really does interest them, but they just are very intimidated about going into real estate, just don't think they have what it takes. Talk a little bit about what you would advice you'd give somebody like this. Feels that
well,
way.
that's a great point. You know, I have accountants, CPAs, you know, accountants, big firms, lawyers, and I always ask them, you know, why don't, you know, you're advising me on real estate, why don't you buy a building yourself? And the answer is fear of the unknown. And most people, like you just mentioned, they don't know where to start, but they have fear. You know, when you buy real estate, where do I get money to buy a deal? What do I do? What if the toilet breaks or this, or people call me at home, I don't want that. But the truth is, you can mitigate fear by being totally prepared for any situation that could possibly occur. You also can make money by learning to identify opportunities overlooked by others. And that's what I'm trying to preach. Be a student of the game. Be a gym rat. Learn everything. Build on the fundamentals. Because, you know, a building with a bad fundamental structure will eventually collapse, and so will your education, unless you master the fundamentals. And I don't know of any university right now that's giving a 4-year degree in real estate. I have seen some that have some courses on modeling and projections and theory, but none that is going to give you the well-rounded curriculum that you need to be successful in this business. And the book, Harvard Can't Teach What You Learn from the Streets, is not written for just people that want to own buildings. It's geared also to anybody that's working in a real estate-related field that wants to learn the other side. There are many executives, for instance, where there's a disconnect in their services of what the owner of a property is really looking for. So by reading the book and taking a course I'm trying to put together, I'm trying to give these people a curriculum and knowledge that they know so that they can do better at their jobs also. And that's what I'm attempting to do, and that's my passion. So, if you want to get into real estate, first learn about it. Everybody wants to go to they don't want to go to the minor leagues, they want to go right to the major leagues. But you can't really do that. You need to learn the fundamentals to build upon, and then, as they say, the world is your oyster.
Well, I'll tell you what, Sam, the greatest, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but the greatest thing about a book is that I'm sure, just like myself, you've made plenty of mistakes throughout your life, and people can benefit from that because you're writing about it. You're writing, don't do this, do this, and you just can't, like you say, you can't get that in the classroom.
No, I mean, one of the best things that they'll never teach you in a classroom is, when you have multifamily real estate, the key to multifamily real estate is to reduce turnover. Because every time a tenant leaves, you're going to lose at least a month's rent. You're going to have to clean the apartment, replace the damage. It can cost you $2,000-$3,000 every time a tenant leaves. So what you want to do is to reduce turnover, because if a tenant renews their lease, you don't pay anything really. Now, one of the things that, again, you learn from the streets and experience is you must make your property where people want to live at your property. And I can't tell you how many people who are landlords just ignore this. It is so important. Make people want to live at your property, reduce turnover, and that's one of the key ways to make money with multifamily. That's an example. When I talk about street smarts and the difference in street smarts, I use in the book the movie The Godfather. There's a scene where Marlon Brando is talking to Michael. I think they were out in the garden. And Marlon Brando says, "Hey, Michael, remember, the guy who calls the meeting, he's the traitor." And I used to go, wow, where do you learn that? Certainly not in school. That is a perfect example of street smarts, of what goes on in the real world.
One of the things that you cover in the book is how not to be successful. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, that's my favorite. Well, I call them motivational preacher teachers. The no money down guys. Read my books.
Yes.
You do it quickly, right away, overnight, immediately. By the time you wake up, from falling asleep from reading their book, you'll be a millionaire. That crap. That is crap. And again, the idea is to teach and basically the students should learn more from a course or a book than where they were before they read it. And that is what I do. Everything I do, I try to make the post-listening much better than they did before. And that's a real problem now. You see people, I've seen things, $30,000 for a 25-year-old kid to take their course and use their time-tested methods and other stuff. What kind of time-tested methods do these people have? It's just a money grab. And I've seen a lot of people waste a lot of money, and they got nothing but frustration. And that's not what I want to do. I want to do a great book, course, and materials where I'm not looking to grab their money. I'm learning to teach them so that they can better their lives.
The financial end of this deal seems to be maybe the most intimidating part of the process. Start with explaining the rent roll and what that is, how that works.
Well, a rent roll is just simply a listing of certain information. That's all it is. It can overcomplicate it. A rent roll will have the unit number, because each let's say you have a 10-unit building, there's usually 2 floors, so you start off with unit 101, you go up, and second floor would be 201, etc. You want to know the type of unit it is on a rent roll, which will show if it's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, a 1-bedroom, 1 bath, a 3-bedroom, 2 baths, etc. You want to know the name of the tenant. You want to know the square foot of each unit, okay, because that helps you with other comparables. And one of the key things that I look for is the lease start date. I want to know when the tenant first started leasing the property, which is on the rent roll. And that's important because I want to know if I have a transient building. So that one of the first things I do when I look at a rent roll is I look at how many tenants are living in the building for at least 2 years. And if it's, only 30%, 40%, you have a transient building, which means your operating expenses are going to be off the charts. Also on a rent roll, you have the lease end date, which is going to tell you, if you have a 1 year or 2 year lease, when you can expect that tenant to either renew or move. And you're also going to have what they call market rent, and then you're going to have lease rent, and those are different. Market rent is each January or so, a management company or yourself, if you're managing, you ascertain the market and you put in your desired rent, what you think you can get for each unit or what you feel they're worth. But then there's the actual lease rent, which is what you actually get, and sometimes it's over market or sometimes it's under market, depending on a lot of factors, the season, the time of year, the economic climate, etc. Now, these are important things to monitor. For instance, if I see the last 5 units have been rented for $100 more, that leads me to believe, and I'm 96% occupied, then maybe I can really raise rents. On the other hand, if I see, wow, I'm having trouble getting, $1,000 a month for an apartment, I might have to lower the rents. A rent roll should also have the security deposits, the amount of the security deposits. And that's what it is. It's just a list, the rent roll, of the tenancy of a building. Nothing more, shouldn't be more complicated than that.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Talking to Sam Liebman about his book, Harvard Can't Teach What You Learn from the Streets, The Secret Success Guide to Building Wealth Through Multifamily Real Estate. If you want more information, go to his website, www.samliebman.com, spelled Liebman.com. Let's talk a little bit about the offering memorandum. You write and cover that in the book. Talk about what that is and what you're looking for in that document.
Well, when you go to multifamily or, more expensive properties, almost all the brokers will send you what's known as an offering memorandum. And all that is a packet. It could be 30 pages, 40 pages, 20 pages of information about the building. And there's components to that. And what I do in the book is I try to do a comprehensive synopsis of it so that you can see what should be in there and then what is missing. For instance, every OM is going to highlight everything great about the building. They're not going to tell you if it's, if you have a 20-year-old roof, they're not going to mention 20-year-old roof. If they have a 2-year-old roof, they're going to highlight 2-year-old roof.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that I want to know that aren't going to be in there. I want to know how much renovation was done over the last 5 years. Now, if they did a lot of renovation, they're going to highlight that. I want to know what type of schools they have, the property has. And they'll tell you what kind of schools they have, if they're good schools. If they don't, again, they won't mention it. So the book, I think it's chapter 3, teaches you this is a comprehensive OM that should have all this information. If it doesn't have this information, you need to find it or get it because you're going to need this information to as a litmus test to see if you want to go further and offer a letter of intent to buy the property. Again, it's a marketing device. There's a disclaimer. They're going to give you every projection that shows that this building is rent roll is going to double. But they tell you, don't rely on anything we're saying in here. Tell you right up front. So don't rely on. Trust nobody and verify. Verify, and that comes in with due diligence, which is another whole thing. This is even before you buy a building. When I look at a building, I look at the offering memorandum. There's pictures of the apartments, usually pictures of the book. They will tell you, they'll give you a little bit synopsis of the rent roll. They'll do their own projections, sometimes not even based on actual. So it's sort of like, I call it like a lost leader into using that to see if I want to continue getting information on this building. And most of the times at my level of experience, I can literally thumb through it for 5 minutes to 10 minutes, do some back-of-the-envelope calculations and see if I'm going to go forward. And that's where you need to be.
Let me ask you this, Sam. Now, obviously, the million-dollar question is, what if I don't have the money? Or maybe I've got the credit, or maybe I don't have the credit. What do you do in that situation? Because you got to have the fuel to get started and drive the car. You got to have that money.
Right. It's a great thing, and I can tell you, I came from a poor background with no money. I look at it this way. Right now, okay, in 1993, when I bought 30-something buildings, and again in 2008, I bought another, I don't remember how many. I've owned over 70 buildings in my career. There were tremendous amounts of buildings available, no money. Today, just the opposite. There is a tremendous amount of money, no really good deals. You really have to be sophisticated to find a good deal. However, if you know the fundamentals and you know how to find a deal and put it together, you will have no problem raising money if you know how to do it. Let me give you an example. If I had the algorithm to, Google, you think I'd have a problem raising money?
Right.
So if I found a good deal that's off market that I could control and learn how to tie that up, I have all the money I need. Good deals right now are the problem, not the money. Now, when I started my career, I was a CPA, I was a certified public accountant. I had the ability to raise some money, but I didn't know about management. I didn't know about construction. So I hooked up with two partners, one who ran a management company of about 80 buildings, and we had another older partner that had a lot of money, and we did syndications. We put together packages. Okay, I did, and I got investors. The partner fronted the money, and then we syndicated him out, and we bought about, over 30 buildings that way. So I started with no money and got pieces of the buildings, and I learned management, and I learned construction while doing that. We're all wired differently. We all have fears, and we have strong points. My strong point was the accounting sector and understanding numbers. I learned the management by being partners in doing. So I say hook up with people that where you have weaknesses and they have strengths, and then you will learn. And then you don't really need anybody. And that's what I did. I read every document, didn't want to rely on anybody, and moved on. And been very successful doing that.
In the book, Sam, you write that every property has two personalities. Talk a little bit about what you mean by that.
Well, this is all my own stuff I came up with. Every property has two personalities, one for the property and one for the property owner. And I wrote something in the book, Chapter 5, called Performing Psychological Due Diligence, which almost doesn't exist. Psychological due diligence asked you to analyze questions like, if real estate's such a great business, why is the property for sale? Why would anyone sell a property? Well, there's good reasons and there's bad reasons. Who owns the property? For instance, if I know, I'm just making up a name, John Lewis owns a property that's on the market, and John Lewis's reputation is that he is a great operator and he sucks all the potential out of a building before he sells it. Knowing that, what am I going to do differently than John Lewis to improve that property? Probably nothing. So I'll probably pass on that. If I know John Lewis, what type of negotiator is he? What's his reputation? And the way I find this out is through a network I've created of contacts. I'll call lawyers. Do you know John Lewis, who do real estate? I'll call title companies. We do this. This is due diligence. And so important to do your due diligence. So there are two different personalities of every property, and the property usually is a mirror image sometimes of the owner. So if you see a property that's run down, you can be sure that the owner reflects that, doesn't care. Again, who owns the property? We talked about John Lewis. Well, what if a property, this actually happened, what if a property was owned for 30 years by an elderly fellow who passed away? and his 3 kids live in 3 different states, and they don't talk to anyone, and they don't want to put any money in the property, so sell it. Those are my kind of guys, because there's more value add in those type of deals, of course, than the John Lewis properties. So understanding that every property has 2 personalities is really important in finding opportunities overlooked by others.
So tell me, you write about 4 different ways to increase property value, I guess, after you buy the building. What is the easiest way to increase property value?
Okay. The easiest way is to reduce expenses. I'll give you an example, and these are real-life examples. I have a building in Texas when I was buying it, in Richardson. And when I looked at while we were doing our due diligence, the water and sewer was $100,000 a year, a little more, $100,000 a year. And I knew from experience that 130 units, it should only be $80,000 a year. Now, what is that? Water leaks. Underground, undetected water leaks. If I was to find those water leaks and I was to repair them, I might save up to $20,000 in operating expenses, which transfers dollar to my net operating income. So even if I saved $10,000 on one expense, like water and sewer, and I'm talking about bigger projects, and it was just a 5 cap, that's $200,000 of value that I increased the property. If I was going to sell it the next day, I would mark that property up by $200,000. And I have made a fortune by reducing operating expenses. And, that's the easiest way, in my opinion. And we usually find these things out while we're doing our due diligence. An electric contract. I look at the electric contract and I see that the electric contract is, $2 a kilowatt hour. And we can get a contract for $1.40 for 3 years, because the owner, just never bothered to shop and know that the electric was deregulated in his state. And we talk about this in the book. By reducing operating expenses, remember something very important. Assuming a 5 cap environment, for every dollar you raise a rent or reduce an operating expense $1, you made $20 in value. You've added $20 in value. $1 divided by 5 cap 0.05 is $20. And that's how you increase property value. And I think by knowing expenses, that is the best way and easiest way to increase property value.
The name of Sam's book is Harvard Can't Teach What You Learn from the Streets, The Street Success Guide to Building Wealth Through Multifamily Real Estate. Sam, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you coming on the program today.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope I added something.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you want more information about Sam's book or about Sam, you can go to www.samliebman.com, spelled Liebman.com. That's one of the things I love about books, is that you can benefit from the knowledge and the experience that a person's gone through. And I love to have people on the program, and hopefully you benefited from it. This is Bob Brooks. You got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.